Welcome back everybody to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at the top of a Bernina 530 record. Now I've been talking about this machine. I made a long video talking about various aspects of the machine, things that basically you want to be careful of when you get any machine, and the Bernina is no exception, because this Bernina has some good things about it right now. It has zigzag movement and it has straight stitch movement. So that's a good thing because it could be totally frozen. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to put some oil in the machine, and Bernina's and a couple other brands, very often they would put little red, I don't know what, red paint to help you figure out where to put oil, which is kind of interesting. Now for restoration purposes, we're going to be putting oil in other places. Do not put oil on the plastic gear or the nylon gear. Right? Now, I'm not just putting one drop, but remember, this machine has sat for a long time. You would not normally put more than one drop. That's not needed. But in this situation, we're just going to kind of put 2 or 3 drops here because we want to kind of, quench the thirst of this machine because it's been sitting for so long. And also be careful, don't get oil on your motor belt. You'll be very unhappy. Your day will not go well. Now I'm going to, you'll notice that this, where I just put oil, is actually part of what helps this to move, right? I'm actually not going to start moving things today. I just want the oil to sit. I've talked to you guys about using penetrants and sometimes solvents to get stuck parts moving, but if you you can always start with sewing machine oil, because sewing machine oil can be very useful at getting things moving again. Now I'm going to put some oil right behind here because this piece just doesn't want to move very much at the moment, and that means we need to study what needs to move, what's trying to move, and get some oil in there. So what I have done, I guess I could do that over here on the side door as well, because you've got red markings where oil should go. And so I'm just going to do this, and again, this is not eventually I would have done this anyway, because this is always part of an overhaul or restoration of a machine, but right now I'm doing this because I want to be able to get the machine to move freely so that I can do a very early test stitch. And the reason I want that test stitch is because I want to verify, as I mentioned in the earlier video, I need to verify that those 2 gears, this one and one down in here, which are nylon, are not broken. If they are not, that's really good, and that will change what we decide to do with the machine, because the owner, this belonged to the owner's mom, and it's very important to have this. But I'm going to give an estimate on what I think it will cost to overhaul this machine. But before I do, I want to make sure that those gears are working, because if the gears are cracked and the machine can't stitch with that, and if they have to be replaced, that will quadruple the number of hours I'm going to need to spend on the machine, really. I mean, it really will. It's going to dramatically change that, and I don't, people need to know, they need to have a good estimate about what something costs to have repaired. And there should not be any need for surprises, and that's why I want to do this test. In fact, I'm not charging the client anything to do this, right? I'm just kind of poking around, looking at the machine. I'm going to get some oil in it because many of these mechanisms, they haven't had oil in a while. They're kind of thirsty, and if you are doing this on your own machine, it can really be helpful to use a flashlight. And again, you want to make sure I don't want oil on this plastic gear. Plastic gears typically don't need oil, because that was one of the selling points, that they actually did not need oil. And then I'm also going to, I can reach and get access to the mechanism that's behind this plastic. The other mechanisms that I need to get oil in for the restoration of the machine, those are going to come. I'm going to turn this machine around so you can really see that mechanism. I will get to those later when I get underneath the machine and places like the the free arm. But for now, because some of these other buttons I'm going to have to get the bottom of the machine off. But just for the moment, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to see, remember these are the metal components that are sitting behind that green knob. And I want to make sure that they are going to be able to move freely, okay? And just because I put the oil in, that doesn't mean they're going to move. They could still say, I don't want to move, right? Now this is the one that's always been moving. This controls your zigzag, right? But that knob moved freely to begin with. I'm talking about this center knob, right? And I just want this oil to sit. Just because I put the oil in, if you do this and you say, well, I put the oil in, it's not moving, it needs to sit, and it may not be enough. I may have to apply heat or any number of penetrant oils to get it to wake up. The more complex a machine is, the more challenging and the more work it's going to be to get it to play, to do what it's supposed to do. And that's just, you know, that's just part of the deal. So I've added oil in a number of spots here. And I think I'm just going to let that sit. I may have missed some of those spots, and if I have, I'll come back again and look for any that I've overlooked. And we'll give it time to kind of just sort of digest what I've just given it there. And again, this is not a guarantee. So if you do this, start this, and see. You never know until you start asking the machine to wake up how asleep it is, and we're going to find out. We will definitely find out. You know, and we'll do enough to get everything moving so that we can run an early stitch. I'm not sewing a garment. I'm not actually doing any sewing. I just want to do a little bit of stitching runoffs to test and make sure that when the machine makes a full revolution, if it does not interfere with the stitches, then my gears, my nylon gears, those two that it has, should be okay as far as we can tell. They should be fine. Now you could have a hairline crack, and it, you know, it may not affect the stitch performance at all, but that doesn't mean it can't crack in the future. But if it's not cracked now, that's a pretty good sign, right? So we're going to let that soak, and like I say, I'm going to let this sit not just for a day. I'm going to probably let it sit for a week, and then as soon as my real job workload starts to ease up, I'll be coming back, and I'm very interested to seeing what this Bernina will do for us once we wake it up. But thank you all for watching, and again, as I mentioned in the earlier video on this machine, because of the complexity and all the different things that you need to sort of address to try to get it to work, it is, like I say, any machine with complex decorative stitches would not be the first one I would suggest taking on as a restoration project. And that's true even for some of the complex slant-o-matic singers. But European machines that are this complex, no, I would definitely choose a different model. Some of you may have taken on one of these your first machine and you knocked it out of the park, and that's awesome. I would love to hear that. But if you said, hey, what would you start with? I would not start with a Bernina or any of the European brands. And if you pick a Japanese or an American sewing machine brand, start with a straight stitcher. They are more user-friendly to learn on. And then as you get more experience, you can dive in. Or if you're not afraid, you can dive right into one of these. Just know that there's a lot of places for these machines to sort of get caught. You can get everything working, and if one part's not working, you know, it's a process of elimination. But beautiful engineering, right? Made in Switzerland. The new ones are not, but this one was. If any of you have worked on these, or you have your own Bernina records, put your comments down below if you've found ways that you were able to wake up your Bernina. We'd all love to hear, and we will carry on and press on as we get on into the end of the summer. I hope to have this machine I hope to test its nylon gears and that they are okay, and then I'll go forward with the rest of the overhaul after giving my client the estimate. And I appreciate all of you guys watching, because I never know what new videos I'm going to make next. It just depends on what's on my bench, and a lot of these ideas come to me either from you guys or they come to me while I'm making a video on one thing and I think, oh, I need to make a video on something else. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone.